Joy, peace, tranquility, vibrancy, and wellness. Isn't this what you want instead of constant stress? That's what host Rochelle Lawson is going to help you with on Blissful Living. There are many ways to reduce stress, some you may not even know about. Doesn't a little peace and tranquility sound like just what you've been looking for? Relax for a few minutes with Rochelle. She's the queen of feeling fabulous.
Hello, everyone. This is the Queen of Feeling Fabulous, Rochelle Marie Lawson, and I am welcoming you to Blissful Living, our wonderful show that is all about helping you to build and sustain wellness, wisdom, and wealth so that you can go out and live the life of your dreams and basically become unstoppable. Today's show is, of course, something that is a very good topic and very dear to me. And our guest is just absolutely fabulous. She comes to us from another part of the not even the country, another part of the world. So I want you to stay tuned. This is a great time, as you know, to find a place to sit, grab something to write with, a piece of paper to write on, and your favorite beverage as we have a nice chat with today's guest. And her name is Fabienne Sandoval. But before we get started with the show and what Fabienne has to share with us with regards to the nuggets of gold, I want to begin thanking our sponsors. Let's start with All Day Cable Incorporated. They are a telecommunications installation company located in the heart of Silicon Valley. They've been in business for 30 years, and they specialize in network distribution, setting up your voice, data, and fiber optic systems, your wireless systems, your audio, your video, your speaker systems, anything that has to do with telecommunications. All Day Cable is your choice. Their motto is they make the right connections the first time so that when you go to reach out and communicate with your customer, your communication is sharp, clear, and the connection is made the first time. So check them out, All Day Cable Inc. at alldaycableinc.com. The second sponsor is Blissful Living for You. It's a holistic health and wellness company focused on helping you to stay healthy and well while you build and sustain your wellness, wisdom, and wealth. They have a lot of programs, and with the changing of the season coming up, there's nothing more exhilarating to step out in those warmer months and have that body of yours looking fabulous, fit, and fine. So if that is something you're longing to do, or if you just want to make sure whatever you tackle, your challenge, that you're successful with it, check out Blissful Living for You at blissfullivingforyou.com. They have some wonderful programs, and I'm sure there's something in there that you're just absolutely going to love. Now, let me tell you who our guest is and what we're going to talk about. Fabienne Sandoval. She is an author, a life coach, and a teacher for Insight Timer. Her first book, 28, The Age of Power, was awarded Best Self-Published Spiritual Book of the Year in 2019 in the Soul and Spirit Book Awards. Her works have been featured in a number of publications, including Kindred Spirit Magazine, Vegan Life Magazine, and Mike Dooley's The Universe Talk. Fabienne teaches burnt-out, busy professionals the secrets to elevate their life through restoring their health, power, and purpose with her elevated coaching programs. She is the creator of Learning How to Love, a 10-day course, which is featured on Insight Timer platform. And so she's currently working on her sequel, 30, The Age of Love, where she shares her journey on discovering how to love. So I want to welcome Fabienne Sandoval to Blissful Living. Welcome to Blissful Living. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show.
We're so happy to have you because we all need what you want to share with us. And I thought it was really cool that 28, The Age of Power. What a great title, because it just takes me back to when I was 28, and I did think I was quite powerful at that age, but it's really cool. First of all, what led you on the journey to even begin writing books that basically help us to elevate our lives?
Oh, my gosh. Well, it was actually kind of by accident or by divine timing, whichever way we want to choose to look at things. I was going through a fairly rough year in my 28th year, and it was something that my mum had always prepared me for. She'd always said, once you get to your 28th year, it's going to be like your aha moment, it's your age of power. But for me, it was quite rough. I had a pretty interesting ride during that year. Some amazing things happened, but also some not so great things happened as well. And it definitely pushed my boundaries and really kind of pushed me to grow massively. And at the end of that year, a friend of mine, I was sat in a cafe with her, and she said that she was going to start this thing called NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And it was in November, and I was turning 29 then, and my 28th year was ending, and she said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this thing, and you basically write 1,500 words. I think it's about that much, or 2,000 words a day. And by the end of the month, you'll have a book. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'd never written before in my life. Wasn't even really something I was interested in. I loved books, but wasn't necessarily a writer. And that was really how my path to writing that book and kind of going on the journey of becoming an author happened, because I just completely fell in love with writing and the whole process. And for me, it was such a healing journey.
Wow.
With that book. And I just loved it.
So now you're writing about, 28 was more about the age of power. And now you're writing 30, the age of love. What led you to transform from power and kind of skipping 29 and going to 30 into a love journey?
Well, the first journey was really around power, and kind of understanding that, we all have this innate power. We have this thing inside of us, and we can use that for better or for worse, ultimately. And once you step into it and own it, then magical, and really you can do anything that you want, anything in the world. And I got to the end of that time, and 29 I spent writing the book. So the whole year of 29 I was writing the book. So I wasn't really I suppose I was, just taking the time to actually reflect on my 28th year. And then it wasn't until when I got to 30 that I realized that I'd always been fascinated with the idea of love. I'd always been so curious about it. And I didn't feel that I necessarily understood it. I knew that it was something that we all do. I knew it was something that we all crave. I knew it was something that was, absolutely fundamental to being alive and being a human, but I just felt like I didn't have a good enough understanding of it. And so on my 30th birthday, I decided that I was going to dedicate myself to a year of love, and I was going to experiment and explore what love was and really just kind of dive as deep into that subject as I possibly could, with the view that it would become my second book. So the teachings and the lessons that I learned throughout that year would then kind of fall into my second book. And originally, when I first started it, the journey, it's so hilarious how things change. I see it so differently now. But at the time, the actual intention was that I would find love by my 31st birthday. Sorry, by the end of my 30th birthday. So by the time I was 31, after that year was up, I was going to be in love. That was the plan.
Wow. Well, we don't want to reveal the ending yet, but
no.
Well, that's super cool. I mean, that's super, super cool. I just think that's interesting how, you went from power to love and the whole journey and the reason behind the journey, which, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But to actually sit down and curtail journal your journey through that year as you focus on love, I bet was very eye-opening and very awakening in some aspects. And I want you, if you can, share with us some of the biggest lessons that you learned during the year of love.
Yeah, I would love to do that. There are so many. I mean, I've probably read about every single book on the subject of love now, in terms of relationships, in terms of, love and its meaning. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I think some of the biggest lessons, the first one I would go with is self-awareness. So I think that self-awareness is something that is absolutely mandatory when it comes to learning more about love and learning how to love, because if we have self-awareness and we understand ourselves first, then we have the capacity to be able to share that love with others. We need to first, though, learn to share it with ourselves. And the more self-awareness you have, the more that you're able to do that, because, what I noticed was even in the simplest of things, the small tasks, just silly things like, I don't know, you knock the glass of water over and you're like, oh, I'm so stupid. You're not being very loving or very kind to yourself in that moment.
Right.
It might sound like a very, passing comment, but it's actually not very kind. It's not very loving. And so the more that you can kind of tap into that and get that self-awareness around every kind of aspect of your life and every kind of aspect of your being, you can then kind of really get in tune with yourself. And then you can actually start to see where you need to kind of hold that space for others and be compassionate and loving towards them. But the only way you can do that for others is if you can do it for yourself first. So
wow. Okay.
Is huge.
Yeah, that is huge. And listeners, okay, this is, nuggets of gold time. So if you've been sitting back, relaxing, and observing our conversation, now it's time that you really should start paying attention and writing down and what Fabienne is saying to us, because this is where it gets really good and juicy. So share with us another lesson that you learned, because self-awareness is good. I think that's a great thing, and I don't think a lot of us even do that, even take time to become aware of ourselves. So I think that is very important. And what you shared, why we should do that, is if you can't be self-aware and love yourself, how can you do that for anybody else? That was huge and powerful. So share with us another lesson that you learned.
Okay, so this one is just one of my favorites. It will change your life, I believe, and it's just so necessary. I wished that in schools they gave people this book and then we were able to learn from it and understand it from a much younger age. But it would be attachment styles. So there is something called attachment theory, and each one of us has a attachment style, and that attachment style comes from, really from childhood. It can be changed later in life if we have some kind of a traumatic experience that kind of switches things up. But ultimately, we all have a specific attachment style. Now, there's only 3 of them. The first one is secure, which around 50% of people are. The second one is anxious, which is around, I think, about 25% of people, 20 to 25%. And then the other one is avoidant, which again is around 20%. And then there's a very, very small percentage of people that are kind of a mixture between anxious and avoidant. Now,
oh, wow.
So these attachment styles really helped me to understand, one, what my style was, which happened to be anxious, and understand the reason that I was anxious. which was to do with the fact that my dad had left around the age of 14, so kind of, typical kind of like abandonment issue, which then made me anxious in relationships because obviously the first relationship with a man that I'd ever had, which would have been my father, he left. So I was always entering relationships feeling anxious that the other person was going to leave. And it wasn't until I understood attachment styles that I actually realized that I was anxious, and actually I could normalize that. So instead of feeling like once I got into relationships I become like really unhinged and not this secure person that I wanted to be, it actually normalized it for me and made me realize like this is for a reason, and it's because of my attachment style, and now I can learn to manage that and to actually use that in a positive way as like my vulnerability, and then in that way it can allow people to actually love me more, instead of kind of shying away from it and being like, oh no, this is my shadow and I don't like it and I don't want to be like that. Actually to embrace it and say like, well, this is what has happened to me in the past and this is how I am, but actually can kind of own that. And interestingly, I mean, for the secure people, they don't really have too many, when it comes to attachment styles. Secure people are, secure, so, it kind of says it all. But for the anxious and avoidant people, it's so interesting because they typically attract one another. So an anxious person who, is really desiring deep intimacy and connection will typically attract an avoidant person who wants kind of freedom and space. So they actually rub each other up the wrong way. And when I looked back across my history of all of my relationships, every single person that I had ever been with was always an avoidant person, which was completely the wrong match for me. I mean, completely incompatible.
Wow. What a trip. As you're talking, I'm, scrolling through, relationships, and it's like, oh, wow. And then I'm really scrolling through myself, and I'm like, which one am I, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. So I guess the person that's secure is good for both the avoidance attachment style person as well as the anxious attachment style person.
Exactly. And actually it's been proven. So if you had two secure people together, that would be effectively like a healthy relationship. But as either like an anxious person avoidant person, if you enter a relationship with a secure person, you will have the same level of relationship as two secure people together. So there is definitely hope, in terms of us having, healthy, positive relationships. And as well, not to say that actually an avoidant person and an anxious person can't be together. It means that you really need to understand one another so that you can, so as an anxious person, maybe I can give someone space, and as an avoidant person, they can give someone more, intimacy and closeness.
Right. Wow. That's huge. Wow. Okay. So, is there one more that you want to share with us?
Okay. Let's see.
Or how about this? How about this? I want to ask you this first, and then if we have time, we can always go back. But I want to ask you this. What do you think is the biggest challenge to love or relationships in our world today? You've talked about, our self-awareness and really being self-aware and loving ourselves so that we can stand up and be that for other people. And then you talked about our attachment styles, which was extremely interesting and, very unique, but very interesting and mind, not even mind-boggling, but anybody can understand what you're saying and probably can apply the information to themselves. But as far as, what do you think the biggest challenges are to love and relationships in our modern day time, even though someone might have this information that you just shared? What is something that they're probably almost everybody today is going to suffer and have difficulty with in our modern times?
Oh, this is such a good one. I think it's technology. So, I mean, obviously technology is a wonderful thing, but when it comes to relationships, I'm not sure that we are actually using it appropriately. I see a lot of people complaining how, their partner is always on their phone, they're not getting any quality time together, because, when they're actually together, everybody is so addicted to their phones and to technology that they're not actually having that special one-to-one shared time with each other. And I think that we are kind of, because of that, losing our ability to actually communicate in person and effectively. So,
right.
You see people that, they'll just send a text, but, what about actual conversation, actually seeing the person face to face and having a deep conversation with them, especially when it comes to things like maybe problems, stuff like that. It can't be done via text, and sometimes that actually escalates the issue more because the form of communication in which you're using is not appropriate. So I think that's a big challenge for us in this kind of modern day world, for sure.
Well, I can attest. There's times when I have been out to dinner and we'll look at the table next to me, and it's obviously a couple, out to dinner, whether it's a husband and wife or a couple dating or, young person, even older people. It just trips me out. And they will be sitting there, won't even be conversating, just sitting there on their phones, texting or looking at social media or whatever. And I thought, wow, things have really changed. And to put it even fast forward, to put it into a context of what you're saying about difficult conversations, I had a friend who was dating a guy, and this is kind of funny, but here in the U.S., April 1st is April Fool's Day, so it's kind of like, people play a lot of jokes and stuff, right? Practical jokes. Well, it was April Fool's Day, and she was dating this guy, and he sends her a text and says, I want to break up, I want to, have my space, and I'm, want to see other people, and she was at work, and so she thought, well, God, this has got to be April Fool's joke, right? And so she was like, she texted back to him like, well, happy April Fool's to you. And he texted back, no, I'm serious. I really want it. It has nothing to do with April Fool's. And she was devastated because she was like, well, at least he could have had a conversation with me. And I'm like, wow. So when you say that, our technology is the biggest problem, I can attest. I even had some millennials. I was having a conversation with them, and these were girls, and they're like, Mom, well, one was my daughter, but they were the young ladies were saying that they didn't believe that in today's society that the guys out there are trustworthy or the women out there are trustworthy because everybody's on social media and everybody's not necessarily faithful when they're on social media, and it's so easy to cheat. And I thought about that, and I'm like, wow. Back in my day, we still had the phone that was connected to the wall. You went everywhere. You had no cell phone, no pager, no nothing. It was just a completely different world, and so. It's very interesting that you say that you see that as the biggest challenge in today, not only with love, but just I think in relationships in general.
Definitely. Definitely.
Right.
And I can resonate for sure with those stories that you were sharing because it's the same what I hear from my group coaching, ladies, and they're sort of sharing with me, oh my gosh, this guy did this, the same thing that you said that, broke up over a text message. I'm like, I didn't know that people did this, these, just because we have that option doesn't mean it's the most effective one. And definitely, if you've been dating someone or, you've been in a relationship with someone, they definitely deserve more than just a text message.
I agree. I mean, I've even heard of stories of people texting their boss and quitting the job. I mean, that's how ridiculous it's gotten, Right? Exactly. I'm like, really? So it's very interesting. Okay, so now, when you talked about self-awareness, you mentioned that, being self-aware actually opens us up for space to allow us to realize how much we love or how much love we're showing to ourselves just by some of the things that we say or the thoughts that come to our head that we allowed to sink in or maybe absorb that thought, really shows when we're self-aware how much we love ourselves. My question now to you is, why is loving ourselves or why is loving yourself such a difficult thing to do?
Wow. I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that we weren't handed a blueprint at birth, like we don't get a manual that says this is what you need to do. What I discovered for myself in terms of like my capacity to love was, it was all stemming from my childhood, the people that were around me were the people that taught me how to love. What our parents do and the people that bring us up, they are the ones that kind of teach us. We learn those habits of kind of how to love from them. And our parents don't have like a blueprint of how to do that.
Right.
And so it's really, it makes it much more difficult for us to love ourselves. I mean, I was really extremely blessed because I did grow up in a very loving household. My mom was amazing. She used to make me and my sisters actually kiss each other give each other a kiss and a hug every morning when we got up out of bed and before we went to bed at night. Like that was like a routine. So, I did get, it was so cute, honestly, and we still love each other so much now, and we're so like affectionate in that way. So I think, there's certain things that you learn from childhood about how to kind of love, and then that kind of goes into how you see yourself and how you love yourself and kind of the thoughts that you believe about yourself. But I think it's just very difficult because there is no blueprint, and if you grow up in a traumatic even if it's not a traumatic upbringing, but there's certain parts of it that are very traumatic, that can really affect the way that we see ourselves. That can affect us from a self-worth perspective, which is huge when it comes to loving yourself. I mean, it's very difficult to have kind of love and compassion for yourself if you don't believe you're worthy of it. Right.
Very, very true. Wow. And that's, another nugget of gold there is just, there's no blueprint. It's not something that's talked about in school, really. I mean, I can't remember any of my education where it was, anything teaching me about self-love. Not unless it was a specific class I took once I was grown and, doing my own thing that piqued my curiosity, and it was talked about self-awareness or self-love or something like that. But very interesting. We do learn from what we see as children and what we experience, good, bad, or indifferent. So you would think loving ourselves would be such an easy thing for us to do, but for some it's so difficult, and some people don't even know where to begin or even aware that they're not loving themselves. And so hopefully our conversation today is, piquing curiosity and awakening, all of us to the fact that we may not be as loving to ourselves as we think we are, or we may not even really be loving ourselves. And just, once you become aware, you can definitely make the change. So I love that. I want to now ask you, how does love ask us to step outside of our own comfort zones? When you have that little tingly, that 4-letter word, love, you sometimes do things that you probably wouldn't ordinarily do. So how does it ask us to do this? And why do we do it?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, gosh. Well, there's a book on love languages, and it's by Dr. Gary Chapman, and he actually talks about the fact that, typically in love we have this kind of like maximum sort of 2-year period where we are kind of in that rose-tinted glasses, it's your honeymoon phase, and that can last up to about 2 years. Sometimes it's less than that, but typically it's around a 2-year kind of mark. And so while we're inside that period, it's really easy for us to step outside of our comfort zone because we see everything as being kind of like wonderful, and our partner can't, we can do, there's nothing that we can't do for our partner, and it's so easy, it's effortless, and everything is kind of just wonderful. But I think that love really asks us to step outside of our comfort zone when we actually push past that boundary, because that's typically where people start to kind of, I guess, their relationships start to fall apart. Things aren't as easy anymore. Like we're not just giving love as freely, because obviously as you go on in time in a relationship, then you remember, oh yes, I have needs and I have things that I need to do, and I have, I don't know, maybe work, I have business, I have career, we have children. There's all of these different things that start to come into the mix. But I think that the way that love really asks us to kind of step outside of our comfort zone is really through being vulnerable. And that's a difficult thing. It's very hard to be vulnerable. And to kind of allow yourself to be seen, like all of yourself to be seen. So
right.
Not necessarily just the good parts of you, but those shadow parts of you as well that really need to be loved too. And that can be scary, putting yourself out there and saying, this is like kind of, this is the other side of me. Are you going to love that too?
Right.
And as well, like I think it's about learning to kind of let go of control, because ultimately in love we don't, in life we don't have control of really anything, and so it's really about surrendering to the experience of love.
Wow. It's beautiful. Yeah, beautifully stated. And had me thinking, about the different phases, or rather that little first phase of the honeymoon phase. And, you do typically see that in people's relationships. In the first 0 to 2 years, everything is about that other person. And then, beyond that, like you said, things happen. People get busier, there may be children that come into play, or, careers become more demanding, and it's just really interesting how it flows into the phases of life, I guess. The ebb and flow of everything, and everything flows into the phases of life. So it's just kind of beautiful to look at and reflect upon. It really is. We're going to take a moment to pause, and we will be right back. So hang tight with us, and we'll see you in just a few seconds. Okay, and now we're back with Fabienne Sandoval, and we're really getting really deep in talking about love and just the ebb and flow of loving ourselves so that we can love others, and so that eventually we bring more love into the world by just really starting with ourselves. So now, Fabienne, I want to ask you, with regards to our wonderful conversation, it's just so beautiful and yummy. As you know, our show here is really about helping people to basically overall reduce stress in many aspects of their life. And I know when people are basically out there searching for love or looking for love, it can be kind of a little stressful thing. Can you share with the listeners how people can reduce the stress that they may feel with regards to the love in their lives?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I think that in order to reduce the stress in our love life, We need to learn how to kind of fill up our own cup first of all. I think a lot of the stresses that come in relationships is because we put the kind of the onus on the other person to kind of give us everything. You need to make me happy, you need to provide for me, you need to be a good parent, you need to do this, that, the other, and we kind of outwardly tell it to the other person, like, you need to do this for me. And that's kind of what we see typically in relationships. But I think that the way to, you know, reduce stress is actually to alleviate your partner from those needs, from those requirements, and actually to look to yourself. So if we can start with ourselves and say, okay, what do I need to put in my cup? Like in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you know, we usually make a tea or a coffee or something like this, and then, you know, we'll have that drink and it's going to nourish us in some way. When we, you know, it's going to give us energy, right? But, you know, we need to think in terms of, in the morning, we need to think of our cup. We need to say, well, what do I need to put in my cup for me today? So it's not about saying to your partner, you know, to do these things for you or to make you feel better or to make you happier or to do, it's about, no, this is my cup. Do I want to put happiness in my cup today? Is that what I'm really needing? Do I need to put, you know, compassion in my cup? Do I need to put kindness in my cup? Do I actually need to put rest in my cup? Do I actually just need to do nothing? And like today, I'm just going to actually allow myself, I'm going to feel guilty about that, I'm just going to allow myself that. So I think we can, really reduce our stress if we look to our own cup first, fill it up from there, and then once we're filled up, then, you know, that gives us more capacity. And as well, I mean, it makes us feel less stressed if we're taking care of ourselves, first of all.
Oh, wow. I like that. That's beautiful. Another negative goal, you guys. It's absolutely just beautiful when you think it, as you were speaking and the words, as they were coming out of your mouth, I'm thinking about what you're saying. And this really beautiful picture comes into my mind and really bright and light, positive energy around all of what you were saying. And it's just, I think, in our society today, with all that we have going on, what you just shared is a wonderful way to give back, so to speak, to yourself and the person you're with or your relationships without creating any upheaval. It allows you to be present in the relationship and be present with what your needs are, but also be present with what the other person's needs are, and really not neglect yourself so much that you're spending so much time doing for the other person, but really just honoring yourself so that you can honor the other person. And I think that if people listen to that would help a lot of relationships that are kind of stressed and tense right now. I think that it's just a really beautiful thing that you said. With regards to the whole searching, you kind of started out our, show about, how you went from, being the age of power at 28 to the age of love at 30. What would you say to someone that's out there looking for love right now? What would you say to them?
Oh, stop looking. It's probably the one piece of advice that like 2 years ago I would have been like, that's the most stupidest thing. Why would anyone ever say that? But the growth that I have done and the deep work that I have done on love really, really shows me, it's just been so obvious to me that actually the more we seek love, the more that we search for it, the more that we look for it, the more it like escapes us. So stop searching for love, stop looking for love, just stop right now. I think that what I would recommend is to prepare for love. When we come at it from the perspective of preparing for love, that allows us to see, I guess, the journey to love and the journey to finding like a sacred union it allows us to see it in a more positive way. It allows us to see it in a more fulfilling way, that you're preparing yourself for love. When we're looking for love, or we're seeking love, or we're trying to attract a partner and stuff like this, it actually kind of comes with like this feeling of lack, right? So we're saying, I'm without, I don't have, and then actually it puts you into a negative place, and therefore you sort of push the love away, because you're then feeling, I'm feeling bad, now I don't have someone, and now I don't feel good about that. And so the more that you search, the more that almost, it just gets further and further away from you.
Right. It's like chasing the carrot, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And then the second that you stop and you take it from a perspective of, I'm preparing for love, what do I need to do for myself to get ready for love? Do I need to, for example, just simple things like, creating an environment for love? Is there things in my bedroom that I need to change? Do I only have one bedside lamp? Would I need to get a second one if I'm going to be calling my partner in? Do I need to get a second lamp so that that's going to make things comfortable for them when we're together as a couple? Can I, in my home, do I have things that are in pairs, or do I have lots of single things on their own? You can start buying things in pairs. You can start, doing on yourself, like, who do I want to be? How do I want to be in a relationship? And then start practicing that on everybody that you meet. So, practice it on your family, practice it on your friends, practice it on, potential people that you go on dates with. And when you do that, that puts you in the perspective of being filled up, that puts you in a perspective of feeling complete, that puts you in a place of just, joy and happiness. And then ultimately you will attract the right person to you when you're in that space. But it's a lot harder, I think, personally, and I'm talking from experience here, that all the time that I was seeking, I was never finding, and it always was feeling like such a drain on my energy.
I mean, I can see, as you were talking about, like, the whole seeking, looking, searching, and never finding, that feels heavy. But when you release, let go, and prepare, I love that. Prepare, it feels so much light. Just saying the words, it feels so much lighter, and so, so happier. So I could totally see how that other way of being, looking, searching, feeling, that whole like needy kind of thing would be a detractor instead of an attractor. Now, we're going to move into, since we're talking about attracting, someone wanting to have a, love mate, and they're making these preparations, and they're doing, the prepping of their space, so to speak, for their partner. What would be some key ingredients that they would need or should have to attract the right partner?
Okay, good question. The first thing I think you're going to need to put in your pot is self-worth. So in order to receive love, we need to feel worthy of receiving love. And so if we don't feel worthy of it, it's going to be really hard for us to be in a relationship and to share that with a partner. So first ingredients is definitely self-worth. The second thing would be around being open to love. So looking and not seeking, but actually like walking down the street, getting on the tube, driving in the car, going into a restaurant, wherever it is you are, being open to love. And in all the many formats that it comes in, and really noticing it. So it kind of goes back to as well what I was saying before around self-awareness, becoming aware of the love that is already surrounding you, and how it's there and it's present all of the time, and it's just a source that we need to tap into. And so you can start so simply with that, where it's like, okay, today I'm going to make it a priority to find one loving thing. And like I'm telling you, like it's so easy. When you say I'm going to find one, you'll find like an abundance of them. There's a couple. Oh, look,
right.
they're walking along holding hands. Oh, they look so nice. Oh, look,
oh,
the
right.
person just held the door for me. How sweet is that? It starts to kind of flow when you are open to seeing it. So that would be another good one. What other ingredients would I add? I think as well, just like what I was saying before around this, this preparation. So, looking back over any kind of old wounds that you have from the past and really like looking to heal any pain that you have and doing that work in terms of, getting yourself prepared so that, those wounds don't pop up once you find the right relationship. They don't pop up and kind of, cause havoc. So, looking back over childhood and traumas and any kind of unconscious patterns or, contracts that we negotiate with ourselves, even things just like, it's crazy how we have these kind of unconscious contracts where we've had a partner
right.
before that they say, I'm never going to love you. You're never going to love anyone. I'm never going to love you. As much, or I'm going to love that person. They're going to be the only person that I'll ever love. And then you hold that, and then you've broken up with them. But then 3 years later, you're still wondering why you can't love somebody. And you realise, I made a contract with myself that I was only going to love that person. So there's certain things that we definitely need to kind of break off in order to get the right ingredients, to set that relationship up.
Wow. Oh, wow. Those are many nuggets of gold in that, and the answer to that question. Wow. Just, wow, very enlightening. I want to ask you, since we are talking about, key ingredients to attract the right mate and, how we need to be present and, prepare and really love ourselves. What happens when we have someone that has hurt us? We have a heartbreak. What advice would you share for someone that's experiencing heartbreak right now and they're hearing us talking about love and all they're thinking about is how their heart is breaking? What would you share with them right now?
Yeah, I mean, heartbreak is really, just the most painful experience. I've definitely had my fair share of those, and I don't think it ever gets easier, to be honest with you. But I would say it's all about really embracing the experience and embracing the kind of the pain that you're feeling, being really, really present with it. And ultimately, beginning that journey back to yourself. So if you've been in a partnership with someone, the chances are you're going to have spent a lot of time with that person. You're going to be holding them as your object of affection, which means, you're going to be, they're going to be the person that you kind of primarily base your kind of life around and schedule your life around. So when that person leaves, it does definitely, bring a hole into, your life, even just down to day-to-day activities, just normal things. So bringing, coming back to yourself and starting to do that journey back home to you, and holding yourself as the primary object of your affection. And I think journaling, for me, journaling's always been like a really great tool to uncover like the emotions that I'm feeling and to work through and process them in a healthy way. So I would say journaling. I do a practice called morning pages. I do that every single morning. I just write 3 pages of kind of just whatever needs to come out, and that is a very healing process. It just kind of sets you up for the day because you can write out everything that you need to say, get it all off your mind, and then you don't really need to take it with you into the day. And if you're going through heartbreak, it may be that you need to do that practice, multiple times during the day or, morning and night. But whilst you're journaling, it's easy for kind of those, your own kind of nuggets of been talking about that a lot today, but, these are your own nuggets of gold to actually come through in your writing when you are, uncovering the emotions that you have. But I think, what, you have to be courageous in your heartbreak, and you have to just allow that pain to come through. And we all know that although it's very difficult, on the other side of that heartbreak is always something amazing that's waiting for you.
Right. Right.
So you just have to hold that and trust that.
I love it. I love that. That is actually beautiful. Anybody out there, if you're, feeling a little, down and out because someone has broken your heart, listen to what Fabienne has just shared and listen to it over and over. There's lots of wonderful words of wisdom and nuggets of gold in there. And as she said, for every heartbreak, there's someone on the other side that is just better than the last person or waiting for you. And if you're doing what she was saying with regards to being self-aware and figuring out your attachment style so you start attracting the right people and really preparing for the love that you want and utilizing those key ingredients to attracting the right partner, then everything will fall into place eventually. But as the old saying goes, time heals all wounds, right?
Yeah. I love that one.
Right. Yeah. When I first heard it, it was nice. I didn't want to hear that. But then after time passed, it was like, it's so true. It's like some of those, those old sayings that, I don't know, whoever made them up eons ago really have wisdom in them. And so it's beautiful what you shared, just absolutely beautiful. Now, here's a question. Why do we need to be prudent in how we love?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's not all roses, really, when it comes to love, right? Is it? There's so much more that goes into love than just this kind of romantic ideology that we have. And it's really important to take our care with love and to kind of cherish it and honor it and do it in a way that is authentic to who you are. So this is where I think we come back to, I'd mentioned it previously, but around love languages.
Right.
So there's an understanding that there's 5 primary love languages, and each of us expresses love and gives love in a different way, in a different format. And so it's really important to, take our care with love and understand that the way in which you give love and receive love may not be the same way in which somebody else does it. So we need to take our care when we are, actually giving and receiving love, and we need to become more aware of the fact that there's actually a multitude of ways in which people, need to be loved. And we also need to really own our own love language, I guess, and actually share that with other people. So for me, one of the love languages is words of affirmation. That's like my primary way of feeling love. I grew up in a family where my mum was always like, you can do it, you can do anything that you want, honey. A lot of I love yous were said and things like that. So for me, I really need that. I need to hear those like affirming words. And if I'm with a partner and they aren't giving me that, I literally feel like I don't know if you love me or not, which is so crazy to say it.
Right.
They could hug me, they can kiss me, they could touch me. I'm still going to be like, I don't think they really love me. So it's really important to kind of know that, and then obviously share that with your partner as well.
Wow. Now, you opened up just another question for me. When you said languages of love, and you said there are 5, just share just with the listeners maybe what they are. You've already shared words of affirmation, which resonates. It's like everything you say just like resonates. I feel like I'm just in an moment. And plus, love is just has such a wonderful vibration, right? But can you share with us the other 4?
Yes. So you have words of affirmation. So that's like, words and spoken things, I love you, this kind of stuff. Acts of service. So that's going to be things like someone unloading the dishwasher, somebody making dinner, somebody picking up some, something from the store for you that you've forgotten. You have receiving gifts. So, your partner bringing home a bouquet of flowers for you, or, doing something thoughtful and sweet, like writing you a card or a little note around the house, stuff like that. Quality time, which is basically just, one-to-one time with each other, uninterrupted. So the television isn't on, the technology is not on, it's just the 2 of you. And then the last one is physical touch. So, being held, being, kissed and touched, and that one.
Wow. How beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm just enamored. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. But, I have, of course, 1,000 more questions now, but we're at our time, and I want you to be able, Fabienne, to share with the listeners. I mean, thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation about a beautiful subject, and everything you shared in the context of our conversation can help all of us immediately. So, I mean, thank you so very much for, 1, saying yes to be a guest on Blissful Living, and 2, for sharing all the nuggets of gold that you shared with us as we had our chat. But now I want you to share with the listeners how they can find out more about you, how they can get in touch with you, follow you, connect with you, when your next book is coming out. Can you share all of that information with us, please?
Yeah, of course I can. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It has been such a blast, and I'm really grateful that you invited me on the show. So I've really enjoyed speaking about this. So it's been amazing. So they can find me a couple of different things. So my second book, The Age of Love, should be coming out next year. But if you go onto my website, www.fabsthoughts.com, you'll be able to click on books and find out more about that and sign up for notifications on it, so they can find my book there. If they need immediate support or they want to learn more about love right away, I just launched on Valentine's Day in collaboration with Insight Timer a 10-day course called Learning How to Love. It's 10 days long, 12 minutes a day, and it really kind of takes you through the journey of what I've been learning in terms of how to love, and instead of coming at it from a perspective of, how to attract a partner or how to call in the one or whatever it is that we want to say, this is really a course based specifically on, learning to love. So whether you're single, in a relationship, no matter what it is, and it actually talks to some of the things I've been talking about today. So it goes into depth with attachment styles and love languages, self-awareness and presence, and, kind of just understanding what love means to you. So I would definitely recommend, if they want to learn more, go download Insight Timer Meditation app, and you can search for me on there. It's called Learning How to Love. And then as well, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my tag is Fab's Thoughts, and I post regular positive affirmations. So that's always nice if you need a little boost first thing in the morning.
Wow. Wow, I'm gonna follow you. You follow me, I follow you on Instagram. I'm definitely gonna do that. That's absolutely beautiful. And then Insight Timer, it's so funny because I've had that app forever.
Oh, really?
Yes. How funny. You're famous. I'm talking to a really famous person, but I've had that app forever because I meditate and it's just beautiful. So oh my gosh. I mean, I've used Insight Timer in Hawaii. I've used it in England. I've used it in France. I've used it in the Caribbean. I've used it, because it's with me all the time. So one good thing about technology is I have access to that on my phone wherever I'm at, right?
Exactly. Well, technology is not all bad, right? We just need to know when to appropriately use it.
Exactly.
And I'm the same. I mean, the way before I was a teacher on Insight Timer, I was using Insight Timer myself because I love it, because when you meditate, they have, you can totally tailor all of your experience in terms of like the bell that you even have that kind of there's nothing worse than being in meditation and then your mobile phone alarm goes off and throws you straight out of it. So it's nice to have, different chimes and nice bells too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love it. We just gave a plug for Insight Timer, but that's okay because we have one of their teachers on. But, oh, my gosh, I'm just running my mouth. And anyways, Fabienne, it was wonderful having you on this show. Thank you so much for being a guest on Blissful Living and for your kind and wonderful words. You're just absolutely a joy. Continue doing what you're doing because we all need more love and wisdom and guidance on how to do it best in the world. So thank you so much. And I want to thank all of the listeners for tuning in to Blissful Living. Please, please, please share this show with everyone you love and care about. We're everywhere now. There's no reason why someone can't access us. You can get us anywhere, wherever you're at in the world. So please share the show. It's about love, and we definitely need more love in our world. I want to thank our sponsors, Blissful Living for You and All Day Cable Inc. Please check out our sponsors. And I'm going to say, as always, thank you so much for listening because the show would not be possible without you. Before I go, I want to wish you peace to your mind, wellness to your body, tranquility to your spirit, and more love to your heart. Have a beautiful, beautiful week, everyone. And until next time, this is the Queen of Feeling Fabulous, Rochelle Marie Lawson, saying goodbye for now.
You can find out more about Rochelle on her website, Rochelle Lawson, Rochele Lawson, Lawson, or at healthhealingwellness.com. Or just click on her websites from the webtalkradio.net page right in front of you. And of course, you'll want to come right back here next week for another episode of Blissful Living. Thanks for joining us.